Hi, Bubble recently announced new native application builder. Currently, it's in a beta testing and available only for a couple of developers. But if you want to test it in your own and create new native application, you can join a waitlist on bubble.io/mobile. Today, I will show how to enable mobile native builder, and we will look into different visual elements, navigation, and some extra features that are available in new native builder. After creating a normal web application, you can go inside the settings and in the mobile tab, click on the button Add Mobile App if you have access to the mobile native builder feature as the beta tester. After enabling Mobile Application Builder, you will be navigated on the index view. Let's click on the drop-down in the left top corner. We can see that we have now mobile views and pages. Pages are made for web application and views are used for your native application. Pages and views are similar structures. They are both main parent of the all elements on the canvas, but pages require reloading when you want to navigate between different pages. In the same time, views are non-reloading sections, and it offers more smooth mobile navigation, like stack, tabs, swipe. This is one of the benefits to use native Bubble application builder than using some third-party wrappers. In the past, it was also possible to create some kind of native application by using Bubble Web Builder by wrapping your web application inside the native container. And it would create basically a full screen browser, masking the fact that the app is running on the web technology in the backend. But using native builder now instead of this special wrapper will allow to have more smooth navigation between views. Also, it offers special features like swipe, long press, and different gestures that Bubble allow to do right now. Also, it will allow to not be dependent on the third-party tools. Now let's check what are the new visual elements inside the native application builder. Along with old visual elements like text, button, icon, and etc., the new thing is the web view. A web view is basically an iframe with the URL of your web application. You can choose here what page of a web application to display. You could display a reset, password page, for page, or any other that you have. Another thing is the horizontal list. It's basically a repeating group, but it's displayed horizontally. You can choose the same type of content, data source. Also, the new elements is the sheet container. Sheets are basically native adaptation of a pop-up. You would use it similar as the pop-up when you want to display more information about something. Let's say you would display a list of all users, and then after clicking on a specific user, you would display more information about them. Something like email, full name, location, and other information that you can store in the database. Now let's talk about the views. Views have different settings. First thing, you can decide the view title. Title can be displayed in the header that we will look into a bit later. And then the view type. View type, first type is scrollable. So basically it would allow to a user to scroll through the page. The same would be with non-scrollable. So you can't scroll on the page. It's a static page, static view. Then it's a vertical list. Vertical list is something similar to a repeating group where you can decide the data type, data source, and you can reverse the scroll. Reversing the scroll is a very useful feature when you want to build, for example, a chat, because you would start scrolling not from the top of the page of the view on your screen, but on the bottom. So it would be the same behavior like inside any chat application. Also in the vertical list, you can decide the separator, so it can be full, touching both edges of the screen, or inset, so you would decide to have some gap on the edge. Let's increase it to see the difference. You can decide the width of the separator and the color. Every vertical list goes by default with the list item. It's basically a container that can include different elements inside. So let's copy it, paste, and now we have two different elements inside the list item. You can decide the content inside this. So let's say this text would display the user email. So we would choose current item, user, email. And if we will preview the application, we will see the email of this user in a list. The next feature of the vertical list is the swipe action. So you can decide to have different swipes, up to 3 from both sides, left and right. So leading swipe action is something that's happening on the left side, and trailing swipe action is on the right side. You can see it's maximum 3 from both sides. So let's say you would want to have edit action or deleting action. Then you can modify the swipe by modifying the icon. Let's say you want to edit it, like with the pen. We can choose the color, size of the icon, and etc. And we would add a workflow like on any other Bubble application. So we would click, and on the swipe action tapped D swipe button, we would modify it. We would open, for example, a sheet like I showed before, where a user can edit information about another view type. It's a section list. It's similar to the list, vertical list, but the difference is that we can have a header section. Let's say we would display the same users. We would say, let's do a user, data sources, users, and group by. What does it mean? Let's say you want to display a list of all users, but group by their first name. You can notice some list on some native application when there is a list of users grouped by names. So first we would have all names that start with A, then B, and etc. So let's go and create a new field in our user data type, like a first name. And now we can group it by the first name. It can be exact grouping, and in section header, we would display current header grouping name, first name. And the same list item that we would display in the normal vertical list, we would display any kind of content. Another things on the view that we can decide is show top up bar. You can see it in some different applications. So you will have new up bar where you can display the title. Instead of just displaying the title, you can decide some styling of this title, color. You can decide to show bottom border or not. It's basically a separator that would be displayed, separation between up bar and the content on the screen. Then you can add any buttons like leading button that would be on the left side and trailing button that would be on the right side that you can add actions to. Another thing that we can see on the view settings, it's include as a tab item checkbox. After clicking it, we can see that we created a new thing, tab bar. Tab bar is the same across entire application. And you can navigate on this view directly clicking on this icon in the tab bar, like in any other native applications. You can display it with tab bar on another view as well, even if it's not included. You can decide to show tab bar. Let's go on, for example, on another page. You can see that this view doesn't have a tab bar and it's not included as a tab item, but we can show the tab bar even if it's not the part. So it just will have a tab bar where we can navigate directly on the home page, home view. Also, the last thing that can be done on the view is to decide the property. Property, it's basically a variable that we would pass through navigation from one view to another. Let's say we would want to create a variable of a user. It would be dynamic value, but it also can be a color picked checkbox. But let's go with a user. Let's add it, and we can see variable here. And next time, when we want to, for example, click a button, we would go on the navigation, go to the view, and let's say we would choose a home page, home view, and we can decide this variable that we assigned. Next thing is the different kind of navigation. As you can see, when we navigate on a view, we can choose different types. It's a stack and a model. You can see on the screen what's the difference of the navigation between these two types, but also in the preview, it's not available to actually see the difference. To test your native application without publishing it on the App Store or Google Play, you can use Bubble Go app. Currently, you can download it only on the iOS and test it through there. You would install first Test Flight, and through the special link, you would download the Bubble Go application. In Bubble Go application, you can log in by using your Bubble credential and choose application in your library that you want to test. And after clicking on that icon, you can see the difference between model type of navigation and stack navigation. Another way to navigate is to navigate directly on the tab. You can choose it here and choose a tab that you want to navigate to on. In our case, we have only one, home, because we only decided to assign one view as to include as a tab item. If you will have more views with this checkbox clicked, you will see more options in the drop-down of the navigation to the tab. Another different thing that Bubble Native Application Builder has is different type of gestures. I already showed you swipe action, but also when you, let's say, create a workflow on an element, it's automatically create an action that called this element is tapped, right? But you can replace this by another type, and instead of being tapped, you can choose element is pressed. So this is default action, and this another option that you can choose. Let's replace it. So basically, this is one of the native features that allow to run a workflow only by doing a long press on element. Let's say you want to a certain action happen after user keep their button on an element at least 1.5 seconds. You can choose this minimum duration. And after this condition, it would navigate them on another view, let's say. We already talked about the app bar. Now let's check similar to app bar element that called tab bar. Tab bar is something similar to a reusable element in the standard web application builder. It will be the same across all views in our native application. You can see all tabs through the different views. So we can see that we have this view as the home tab. You can also create another tab directly through the tab bar by clicking on the add a new tab item and deciding what view we want to add. Let's say update app view. It's a standard view that goes with the native builder. We can decide the label and choose different icon. You can see that basically inside the tab bar we have these tab elements similar to the elements inside any container inside the bubble. We can decide some conditions. The standard one is that when this tab is selected, so when current user is on this tab view, we would change the font on another color and we would change the color of the icon. So it would indicate that user had chose this tab. Another thing that we can talk about is the safe area. Safe area is something similar to a placeholder that would keep the content from being on the top part of the screen. Users can have different screens on their devices. So like iPhone could have dynamic island or other phones have different shapes. Sometimes you don't want to display content in the top part. And to display it below the dynamic island, let's say, on the iPhone, you would choose to show the safe area. If you decide to display an app bar, you will see the safe area by default. But if you uncheck it and would want to display your screen without the app bar, you can enable safe area separately from the app bar. And instead of having your content from the top part of the screen, where would be dynamic island, let's say, you would start it right below it. Another new thing that Bubble allows to do is to access library of the phone. Let's say user would click on the item inside the list. You can choose to add workflow. And in the search for an action, you would choose library, open camera library. You can decide if you want to select only one photo or multiple photos. And if you want to make it as a private file, the same like we do in the web builder. After that, let's say we would save it inside the current user data type. So let's modify, make changes to a current user, and let's create a new field, files. It would be a list, and you can add new files from the step 1. Let's choose only single photo. So after typing on this text, we would open the library, and after choosing the pictures, it would automatically start the step number 2 and save this picture inside the current user field called files. As the last thing, let's talk about the push notification. First of all, to use push notifications, you would need to fill some information inside the mobile tab, like Apple push notification service if you want to deploy it on the Apple developer account. You would provide this necessary information from your account and fill other information as you want, the same for unjoined settings. The new data type that goes by default with native builder is devices. Devices has push notification token that would allow to send notification to the devices where this user is logged in. As a new native actions, Bubble has send push notification action and request push notification permissions. Before sending push notifications, it's important that user would agree with the permission to receive notification. If user didn't allow it in the settings, it would not be possible to send any push notification to the user. So if you want to send a push notification, first of all, you would send a request, and after that, send a push notification. A request can be done in the beginning of the registration process, or it can display before sending a push notification. Or usually it can be done in the settings of the account. Send push notification action goes with the title, subtitle, and body that you can decide. Also, user can decide to what devices they want to send this notification. But without having enabled permission to receive notification, this device would not receive any notifications. Thank you for watching. That was everything for today. In the next tutorials, we will dive into specific examples and what you can build with new Bubble native editor. Keep bubbling and building. See you soon.